He's right behind you.
I'm Avital Ash.
I'm Jessica Richards.
And this is...
He's right behind you!
Today, we are very excited to have special guest Steven Weber.
I'm right behind you.
Oh, wow. You did like a polite little chuckle at our banter.
Yeah, it's good banter.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, it is good.
Yeah. I feel like when I met you, you introduced yourself as Stevie Weber. True or false?
That's false.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Stevie was used by my grandmother, and my least favorite of my grandmothers, of which I had two, and she would say, Stevie, Stevie. And so to this day, Stevie, I hear that voice that I just imitated in my head.
Wow.
So there's no way I would have introduced myself to you
In
as
my head,
Stevie
you're
Weber.
Stevie Weber.
Stevie, you can call me Stevie Weber.
I like it. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
How should we introduce you? You have done so much, so many wonderful things.
That's as good an introduction as any.
Great.
I've
I
done so
nailed
much
it.
and done wonderful things. That's fine.
We met doing a pilot that Clark Duke wrote and directed, and you are so fucking good in it.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you very much. Everybody was good in it. It was a really fun pilot. Should have gone. What was it? It was like Friends meets Seinfeld? Or
Yeah.
wait, it was...
It was Seinfeld meets Robert.
Oh, that's right. Seinfeld meets Robert Altman. And the Robert Altman of it was how it was shot.
The camera was always moving.
Moving in to, as dialogue was proceeding, the camera would move in to what you think would be a close-up and then go past the actors into the background and come back. And also it was hard to hear, which drove me nuts, because we were spouting gems. Right? But Clark didn't give a shit. He was just doing Robert Altman stuff. So it was really funny.
Yeah.
And we just met downstairs 5 minutes ago.
That's right.
You guys are thick as thieves already.
That's right.
Yeah, it went well.
Yeah.
So far,
Much like the
again,
pilot.
go slow. Go slow with me, please.
One step at a time.
Yeah, one step at a time with Stevie.
Stevie, what is your relationship to horror?
I was always, I guess, attracted to horror films since I was a little kid. I always liked the classic Universal Studio monsters. Growing up in New York, there were always Saturday night TV shows, creature features on 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock even, and it was... I just loved it, and I was a fan of this classic magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland, which was published in the 60s, 70s. I think there's still remnants of it now, and that fed my horror movie addiction, I guess. And so I've always had a relationship to it. Always loved those old monsters. Got into doing my own monster creature makeup as a young guy, and just got really into it. And then eventually when I was acting professionally, I had the good fortune to do some horror fantasy projects, which got me closer, more in touch with the mechanics of it, makeup and effects, and I was in heaven. So
Did you ever try to chime in, like, here, let me do this special effect makeup?
Well, once I gave my bona fides or bona fides, however that's pronounced, they were generous. The makeup artist said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead," and let me apply certain things. But I mean, not really. The stuff that I'd learned as a wannabe actor had to do with the kind of very rudimentary aspects of horror makeup and just makeup in general. And I had these starter makeup kits, Ben Nye, or there was a guy named Herman Buckman. If there's anybody listening to this fucking podcast who would actually understand, Herman Buckman had makeup books in the 70s, and it was all grease paints and woolen hair and nose putty, really kind of primitive stuff, but that's what I learned on. So once I said that to several makeup artists, they were like, "Yeah, go ahead, try it," and then they'd say, "Okay, that's enough."
It's like a 6-year-old, like, turning the wheel on their dad's lap.
That's right. You want to drive, son? Sure. That's right. And they would drive off into a ravine.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Can you think of, like, what's the scariest thing you've ever seen? Scariest movie or, like, image from a movie?
Oh, my God. I mean, again, as a younger viewer, the films that scared me... I was mortified of zombies. And to this day, even though we're in zombie overload, I mean, there's such zombie fatigue. Mm-hmm. The early, Night of the Living Dead things absolutely made me mental. I could deal with werewolves and vampires and all that stuff. That was doable. But just kind of shambling people in crappy clothing wanting to eat me, really, I did not like that at all. So Night of the Living Dead actually really scared the crap out of me. And I have to confess, not just by way of segue, when The Exorcist came out, my mom, for some reason, whether it came out 72 or 73?
73.
73. I was 12.
I'm the fact checker.
Look at you. On it.
Got my notes.
I was. We went to see The Exorcist, and at 12, it was too young. I was still too young at 12 to see a woman jamming a crucifix into her vagina.
I feel like
I was a couple years too early. 14 is all right.
Do you ever get old enough to see that?
Well, like I say, 14.
14.
You know, I mean, I jammed a crucifix into my vagina to show my children.
Wow.
Well, I said too much.
A very open relationship with your kids.
But that movie in general, and not even having to do with those types of still shocking effects, it just worked on me in a way that really made me nervous and made me uncomfortable for many years. You know, and not being especially religious, suddenly it made Satan really kind of palpable to me.
You're Jewish?
Yes.
Question mark?
Where are you going with this?
So did you have any relationship with those sort of religious symbols?
Sure. I mean, I was a very secular Jew.
Yeah.
I actually went through a kind of a period where I was hovering precariously close to Christianity because I liked the ornate, I liked the aesthetic of the churches in New York City. They were cool and medieval, and I liked the smell of incense, and I liked the Latin, and I liked the choral music and all that stuff. And Jesus seemed okay, I guess. And so I did like a lot of the symbolism. And you know, Christmas time stuff. I mean, I was Jewish, but I was a New York Jew, which meant, you know, that I had a sense of humor, and then I would shrug a lot, and that's Jewish.
Woody Allen, basically.
Basically, Woody Allen, Mel Brooks, that type of thing. That was my Jewish upbringing.
I'm so glad that I had an excuse to watch The Exorcist. Well, I was going to say, why did you choose it? You kind of gave me a bunch of movies, and I said, let's watch The Exorcist.
Right. You rejected my other films for whatever reason. That's another podcast for another time.
We'll bring you back.
Okay. But The Exorcist was, look, I mean, it's kind of universally hailed as one of the all-time great scary movies. And at the time, it caused an enormous sensation. People had not seen, you know, not least because of the shocking sequences. Again, it was a very adult handling of this topic, and also the book itself, William Peter Blatty. It was an enormous international success. I mean, it was a huge bestseller. So there was this interest already. This huge demographic, global demographic. So
this is the fourth movie we've watched for this podcast, so it's not saying that much, but it is my favorite.
Is it? What were the other films?
We watched The Shining,
Right.
which was also great, of course.
It's great.
Friday the 13th.
Right.
And Funny Games.
What's Funny Games?
Oh, it's scary. It was a German film remade shot for shot by the writer-director in English with Naomi Watts.
Interesting. Look, there's
Tim Roth.
something very interesting about European and, of course, Asian movies, horror movies, because it, as Westerners, we have a specific kind of sensibility. It's very linear. Even when it's shocking, it's still linear. But there's something about European culture that really scares the shit out of me. It's because it's rooted in fables and plagues, and it's really dark and weird. You know, and sexual in the way that it took, you know, decades of American movies, especially in the horror genre, to get even a little sexual. They still can't fucking deal with it in this
And
country.
The Exorcist does it in a way that it's shocking that studio had signed off on it. Which we'll get into all this
crazy shocking. I can't wait.
All I remembered, I thought I had seen this in high school, but all I remembered was the spider walk down the stairs. And when I watched it, it wasn't in it.
That's right. That was new. That was shot back then, and then brought back for a new version, right?
Yes.
Several years ago.
I read that it was, you could see the wires because the CGI wasn't
that's
where
right.
it is now.
It was nowhere.
Yeah.
Not only was it not where it is now, it was absolutely not anywhere.
It didn't exist.
That's right.
So I don't know if I ever actually saw it or if I just saw that scene.
I saw it in college. In film school, I took a horror class, and they made us watch this on Halloween night for
Oh
our
my
screening. And I possession is like my biggest fear.
So all those movies, what was it? Mary Rose, Audrey Rose, and all the possession. I can't stand that stuff.
It freaks me out
It freaks
so
me out.
much. It's like I don't find it entertaining. I just find it uncomfortable and terrifying, and I want to leave the room. Like sometimes I feel like if I just watch this, I'm like introducing it into the world that I know about it, and I could be possessed.
How did you? Now, how did your class react to it? I mean, it was in a group situation. It was fun, I'm sure, but was
Everybody
it effective?
loved it,
Yeah.
and we wrote a lot of pretentious papers on it.
Oh, good.
So it was a success. But I haven't seen it since then.
How did it feel now?
I watched this it took me like 6 hours because I kept like pressing pause. And it's really hot in the valley. And like, you get rolling blackouts and stuff. And when I'm watching this, the lights are going on and off in a lot of these scenes.
It's yeah.
And I'm home alone with my dogs, and all of my lights start flickering a lot during the scenes where the lights are flickering in this. And I'm not okay with that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
yeah.
creepy.
So I kept having to take breaks to be like, I should go out into the world, and like, I'm okay.
I always found those movies really disturbing because a lot of it happens in bedrooms, and that's supposed to be a safe place.
Yeah.
I don't like faces appearing at bedroom windows. I don't
No.
like beds getting there.
And
I don't
nobody
like that.
believes you. That's the other thing about like ghosts and possession movies that drives me nuts is you're like, this is real, something's happening.
Yeah.
And nobody believes you. They just
Right.
write you off as crazy. And how do you escape that? How do you survive that?
And then you can go down these kind of YouTube wormholes of if you type in possession or the scariest videos on the web, and invariably, I'm actually, as I'm saying this, I'm not feeling well. There are videos of supposed real possessions and exorcisms, and it's so disturbing, because they lack the slickness of a film like The Exorcist. What they are kind of fuzzy black and white videos of people who are in real distress. Do you know? I'm not saying they're actually possessed. They're poor, tragically insane people, and it's ugly, and it's scary and out of control. And I don't believe in that in Satan necessarily, but I believe people can drive themselves to the point where.
I do think this movie, in a lot of ways, functions as an allegory for mental illness. And as we go through it, I'll cite my examples, but I thought that was really interesting how
Thanks for bringing us down. Yeah. We're having a really nice time talking about that. Yeah. Okay, good. Allegory.
You were talking about the crazy people you
Yuck.
saw.
Yeah.
And I took it literally. I believe in ghosts. I
Yeah.
believe in all that stuff. And I'm watching this as if it's a documentary. Like, okay, the first signs are this. The second signs are this.
Yeah.
This is how I know what to look for.
Yeah.
Tonight, something weird is going to happen at your house.
Oh, my God. Well, I do.
I know, but it really is.
I remember seeing this in college, and the very first signs are that there's like a scratching in the attic above her bed.
Yeah.
And one summer when I was staying with my mom, I was going to bed, and it's just me and her in this house. And above my bedroom in the ceiling, I start hearing scratching and was immediately like, this is the beginning of my possession, and was really scared. And then the next night, I go to bed, and I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm really good at this. When something's wrong, I will pop awake because my body is like senses danger. And the light in my brother's room, there's a lamp in there and it's on. And he's not there. He doesn't live there. And I got up. My mom's kind of a night owl. Sometimes she doesn't sleep. So I was like, okay, maybe she's like 3 a.m. being like, I'll clean the closet. So I went in kind of like, what are you doing? No one's in the room. And I was just like, oh no, oh no, oh no. So I went to my mom's room and I woke her up and I was like, the light in Derek's room is on. Help. And so she comes out and she's like, did you turn it on? No, I didn't turn it on. Did you? No. And we're standing at the doorway and we're looking in. And she's like, okay, I'm going to turn it off.
Oh, no.
I was like, okay, you go. I'll stay here. And she takes one step into the bedroom and the light goes off.
Whoa.
And we freaked out. We both slept in her room that night. And the next day,
Sorry,
My earphones
I
off.
just screamed into the mic. Sorry.
but the next day we were
It's
like, let's
creepy.
figure this out.
Yeah.
We had squirrels in the attic.
Satan's squirrels. That's right.
We didn't have rats like they say in this one, but we
Yeah.
had squirrels. And it was like one of those touch lamps.
Yeah.
So they had been chewing on the wiring, which makes it go on and off. But it was terrifying.
Yes.
Wow, but you got a non-metaphysical explanation.
The Nutzercist. Well, one of the great things about this movie is how William Friedkin, in the beginning, takes normal things and makes them malevolent,
Yes.
right? And so even when Father Merrin is in the desert in that kind of preamble where he's encountering the demon Pizazu, whatever the hell it is, even the look at one point, somebody, oh yeah, there's a guy, they're forging something, or there's a smithy and wherever he is in and around, and a guy stops and he wipes his face and he looks over and one of his eyes is cataract and milky. Suddenly that's terrifying. Meanwhile, this poor fucking guy has a cataract, he's hot. That's it, but already we're getting terrified. And dogs fighting in the street. You think something's happening.
Yeah.
Satan's afoot.
And
they
he
use it
sticks
as
his hand in to grab like the little finger.
Oh, yeah.
And a fly lands on his hand.
How about that?
And I was like, oh my God, it's Amityville.
That's
It's
another, yeah.
Amityville.
Yeah.
And also the opening shot is the sun in black and white, and it turns into color, but not just color, like a blood red sky, foreshadowing there will be blood.
Yes.
And then, of course, it opens, even before we see anything, the scariest thing, Muslims praying. I'm like, is this Islamophobic?
God. Yeah. That's the
Let's
worst.
wait and see.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it is ultimately Islamophobic. But as it began, I was like, where are we going with this?
I don't think it's Islamophobic,
No,
but it plays upon Western,
Fear of other religions.
That's right, and the idea that these people are dark and savage. Look at them, and
Yeah.
demons and statues, and of course, Westerners don't have those at all. Statues.
I didn't know that this was a thing, that a priest could also be an archaeologist. I'm like, this is an interesting
Well, the other
mixture.
priest is a psychiatric
I know, I didn't know
That's
that either.
So they wear lots of hats.
I know, evidently.
They cut out one where the priest was a choreographer.
I want to see those deleted
Yeah.
scenes.
Well, okay. I keep interrupting you because
No,
I'm
go ahead.
desperate for company.
Please.
All right? I don't see a lot of people. I like to talk. There's a scene right before another famous scene where she comes down and says, "You're going to die up there," and she, makes wee-wee on the rug.
Oh, it's so scary.
My God! But actually, it turns out Satan is great for like carpet cleaning services. Like, bring him on! Come on, Satan! We can even remove Satan's urine.
He actually gets a percentage. It's
He gets a huge
commission-based.
percentage. That's right. Where the priest at the piano says something. He says, "My idea of heaven is to play." He says something that's hilariously almost Queenie and almost you're like,
Yes.
"Oh wow, it's kind of hilarious." My idea of heaven is to play a show, and I'm the star. And he's right. I'm like,
Everybody
whoa,
loves
what
me.
year is this? Everybody loves me. It's
A
kind of
white
sweet. hilarious.
nightclub where I'm the headliner and they love me.
That's
for all
hilarious
eternity.
for all eternity. That's very funny.
I do think there's a lot of nods to showbiz in this because she's an actress, Chris is an
That's
actress.
right. That's right.
And Burke Dennings is the director.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
He meets an end.
And I did wonder if at one point her husband is supposed to be the writer because Dennings makes a comment that, the writer's in Rome or something. And
Oh,
then later she's
interesting.
trying to
Oh,
pin
yeah.
down
Interesting.
her
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
husband and she can't.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
All right,
didn't
go.
realize that we see Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that he's like 40 at the time and they
Yeah.
aged him up. So
Yeah, I looked up his age immediately. 'Cause
Yeah.
I
I
was
was
like,
like, this is insane.
Great makeup. Dick Smith was
So
the makeup
good.
artist.
I at first was like, I have to believe he's a warlock because it's 40 years before he plays the three-eyed raven.
That's right.
And looks younger.
That's right.
how?
He's one of those guys. It's like when you're a man and you're bald at 20.
Yeah.
When you're 60, you look almost exactly the same. You look
Right.
maybe a little hungover.
It's like Steve Martin looks the same.
Do you think so? Well, because
think
he always
so.
had white hair, or not always, but for the longest time.
So we just got used to it.
That's right. He's just, and you don't see the fact that he's mottled and exhausted.
Well, and his age, I did look it up, was 44.
Crazy.
Because immediately I was like, wait a second.
And he's so frail and shaky.
Oh, the shakes. When he's
so
taking his
good.
pills, I mean, they're fantastic, as shakes
Yes.
go. Really
A
beautifully
plus
done.
shaking.
A plus.
I agree.
It was great. Yeah, it was great. Great acting in it. And I'm sorry, you lead. I'm sorry.
No, we're all doing this together.
Are
It's
we?
a group effort, yeah.
Okay,
But they
all
they call him over. I think they say that they had some interesting finds, lamps, arrowheads, and coins, which I wanted to assign some deeper meaning to. Like, lamps, bringer of light, coins, because money is an evil, and I don't know, arrowheads, yeah, I guess war. So maybe that's
I think
darkness,
you're-
war, and money.
I think you're overthinking
I'm
it.
reaching for
That's
sure.
too much. That's too much. Oh, and Satan. And
Satan,
Satan's
sure.
over there. But look at those coins.
And he has the Pazuzu
Yeah, it's like a
artifact.
head, right? So, yeah.
He brushes the dirt off. And then that same artifact is in this office, a collector's office. Who is that guy?
Or was it, or did they transport those? I feel like there's a time cut.
Oh, yeah.
There's
That's how I meant
there's
it.
like a coin.
there's
that
a
looks
medal.
Like it's, on a necklace.
Yes, it's like
supposed
the
to be on a
St.
necklace.
Joseph's prayer.
Right. St. Joseph's, he's the patron saint of children's aspirin.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, no. Because there used to be St. Joseph's orange-flavored children's aspirin. I forget who I'm dealing with here. Children. Your kids. You
Thank
don't get
you.
my references.
Oh, it's so nice to
We're
hear.
so young.
It's so young.
No, I didn't mean like it, but then we're in a place that where all these things are brought to.
Right.
I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, I don't know. He says evil against evil.
Yes.
He doesn't say a lot.
He doesn't, and he
But
says,
then
"I
the
wish you
clock
could
stops.
stay." Yeah,
The clock stops?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Oh, yeah.
The clock on the wall stops.
and that's not a reach on my part. Time is running out. I think that's what it's saying.
Oh.
Yeah, time's almost up for Father.
Marin?
Yeah,
Or maybe there were squirrels in the closet. gnawing away at the cogs.
It's always a possibility.
It's always squirrels. Satan's,
Squirrels are demon.
you can't rule it out.
You know.
I read because I was so curious about the evil against evil, and that in the book he's wearing something. I think it is that same Pazuzu that he like wears around his neck, and the idea is you can scare off other demons by wearing a scarier
Ooh,
demon.
interesting.
I thought that was cool.
So I should get one of those.
Yeah, this is part of your plan to avoid being.
I really don't want to be possessed. It sounds awful.
I don't know. You're talking about it so much that you're a candidate for it.
I know sometimes I feel like if
gonna
I
happen.
say that I believe in it, that like brings it to you because they're like looking for like you have to believe in it to get possessed or soming.
It's going to happen.
So maybe I don't believe in it.
It's too late.
You can't
It's too
fool
late.
us,
Yeah,
we
you can't
know.
fool us.
We're coming for you.
Not into it.
Apparently not. But apparently you are.
This movie really stressed me out.
Oh, I loved it.
That's the great thing about this film. I mean, there's some shocking moments, but it really builds and builds and builds on you. I mean, it takes a long time for shit to happen.
Oh, yes.
It really does. I
Yeah.
kept looking at the clock because I kept pressing pause. And, like.
Are you sure this is the right podcast for you? This may be bad for you.
I'm better with slasher movies.
Yeah, we're
You are? That's horrible. Okay.
I love a movie where I'm like thinking about it and it's totally consuming me, and she's like, I just want to laugh at people being killed off screen.
Yeah,
So we were-
Friday the 13th was my favorite that we've done so far.
Right.
I like the fun. There's like a lot of jump scares.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
when we leave, it like leaves my brain.
Yes, right. Because it's like leaving a fun house or
Yeah,
leaving
exactly.
a carnival. No,
It's
this
like
is
a roller coaster.
This ain't it.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up Amityville Horror, and I'm from New York, and so when I was a kid, that book was also like a bestseller, the Amityville Horror. It was already very popular, and it was already in the news, the actual house and the murders and all that stuff. And so when the film came out and they were, depicting it, it also really made me uncomfortable. I don't like houses
that one
that are.
is so scary.
Oh, that is
True.
scary. It's true. Well, there's a famous picture supposedly of the little kid who's murdered and his eyes are glowing. As I'm
thank you. I don't
saying
wanna
this,
see it. I don't wanna see the
it is
picture. I
it
can't
is
see the
horrifying. As a kid, I went down these roads and it was books, paperbacks. I looked at them too often. It really messed up my sleep. And for years on the internet, I was doing that, and no more do I do it.
I relate to that.
took the exception, and I watched the internet. I watched The Exorcist for you guys.
Thank you.
But that's it. Yeah.
I can't. I read the Wikipedia of Sylvia Likens, and there are 2 movies based on what happened to her, and I couldn't sleep for like a week.
What-
If you
who's
do
that?
look up any of it, I recommend reading during the day.
Oh, forget it.
Oh yeah, don't. I mean, I won't even talk
No,
about
I'm
it. 'cause
done with that
I'll-
crap. All right, forget it.
Yeah, let's pretend we never talked
All right.
about
Yeah.
it.
La 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 la.
Okay, so we spend all this great time with von Sydow in northern Iraq.
Right.
Then we're in Georgetown, and we hear a crash. It's Chris. It's Ellen Burstyn. Her
Burstyn.
wallpaper. Burstyn, is that
Yeah,
how you say
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I've said it wrong my whole life.
That's right.
Her wallpaper is incredible. So is her orange bathrobe.
Yeah.
She checks on her sleeping daughter and shuts the window. And her first line is, "Sure do love you," she says to her sleeping daughter.
And she's hearing noises in the attic. She hears
Yeah.
it like a few times. It's not
Yeah.
just like one noise.
Yeah.
It just keeps happening, which is so scary to me.
And it's it's not a little crawling
No.
noise. It's like tear. It's a
Yes.
like something's tearing its way through.
It sounds like a
walls.
monster, even to a
Something.
rational person.
That's
You're like,
right.
that's a
It
monster.
sounds
sound.
bigger than a rat, which
Yes.
means
Yes.
it might be rats.
Yeah.
Yes, she's convinced that there are rats. One of my favorite parts of the movie is Carl says maybe it's the plumbing. She says or maybe rats. He says, I'll go buy traps. And then she says, don't bother going. They're not open. He says, well, I'll just see. And then Willie, who also works for them, goes, they're closed. She's really mad.
Is Willie Carl's wife or
I don't know. They both work for Chris.
and they're both German.
Yeah.
Husband and wife.
Swiss, he says.
Swiss.
We'll
Oh,
see.
no, that's
another
right.
one of my favorite
Oh,
scenes.
yeah. Oh, yeah, terrible.
Where,
Burke goes off on them.
yes,
Right,
Burke
yeah.
is antagonizing him.
The English have a real thing, I guess, against Germans, no matter how nice
so
they
good.
are. Or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, they just hate them.
He says, was it public relations you did for the Gestapo or
awful.
community relations?
Yeah.
He says, I'm Swiss.
Carl goes after him.
And then he says, you never went bowling with Goebbels either, I suppose. I never know how to say Goebbels.
Goebbels.
But I feel like people have corrected me when I say Goebbels. They're like, but they don't know.
Gubbles are like
Gubbles.
a kid's candy.
Is that a thing?
Have some Gubbles. Well, but it's Nazi-shaped. It's swastika-shaped
Goebbels.
candy.
Yeah. When I say Goebbels, people think I'm trying to say gerbils and that I don't know the word.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to rats.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Sorry, that was forced.
No, it wasn't. It was very natural.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and when she does go into the attic and you see all the empty traps, but you still hear the noise, and
Oh my
that scene where
gosh.
she's about to go into the attic and she tries to turn the lights on and the lights won't turn on, which is
yeah.
my nightmare.
Yeah.
And she grabs a candle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is so much scarier.
It is.
Yeah, a candle.
And then when she's up there, she hears the noise, and then the candle erupts into
Yeah.
a flame.
Yeah.
That's really the first jump scare,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whoa!
Yeah.
I also don't like attics. Attics or basements scare me.
They're
I don't
always
like
scary.
anything that's not the main
Basements.
part of the house.
Yeah, basements are tough. A while ago, my then wife and I lived in a house on the East Coast, and it was a big-ish old house. And in fact, previous to our purchase of it, the owner's wife had died in it. But,
Did you get a good deal?
as long as we kept her there. And
Her body or just her spirit?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
And at night in the summer, there was an air conditioning unit in the or not a unit, but just the big part of the air conditioner that run. Oh God, I'm so drunk. And at night, it would make every hour or so it would go. And I would will myself to go down into the basement and kind of dump it, or like in The Shining, they have to dump the boiler. Turn it or make an adjustment. And I was talking to myself. No, you got to be kidding me. You're an adult. Forget it. And P.S. Ghosts. Let's say there are ghosts. Have there ever been ghosts who punch you and hit you? No. The most they can do is open drawers up and close
Or
them again,
possess
and whatever, or possess you. So I was banking on them only having the strength to maybe open a drawer, and I psyched myself into believing that, of course, it was fine, and was fine. However, it was very scary. Look how scared.
I'm so scared of all this stuff.
It's
Ghosts
creepy.
really
Whole
gets
body
me.
shrinks.
It's amazing.
I'm like sweating.
I wonder if air conditioners are a common place for spirits to live. Because my best friend, Gabby, who now lives in Israel, was convinced that her home was haunted, and her air conditioner would spit ice at her very aggressively.
Anytime
And
she passed?
Just like in her bedroom, just half the time,
ice
it would
at her.
spit ice at her. And I laughed. I was like, that's not proof that it's haunted. But then what's really weird is at one point, after they'd been living there for years, she mentioned something about it to her dad. And he goes, oh, yeah, I see that ghost. She's in a blue dress. And Gabby
Oh
was like,
God!
yes.
Don't.
And they both had seen it.
No.
I think they only talked about it once they moved because he didn't want to scare them. And She
Yeah.
was
I don't like any of
seemed to be a
this.
friendly ghost. But,
my
except for the spitting ice.
One of my sons years ago said, without, being snarky, he said, all right, if ghosts are the spirits of dead people, then do their clothes die too? And I thought, oh, you just basically destroyed everything about ghosts and the belief of ghosts. You're right. Does fabric die? And no, it's bullshit. And in fact, ghosts would be naked. And I think I tweeted something incredibly clever about how I'm glad ghosts don't exist, because I would hate seeing all that 17th and 18th century giant mounds of pubic hair floating around. Nobody groomed back then, and nobody wants to see that.
That is a good point. They both saw the blue dress. How does that work?
It
then?
does because there's something else going on, and it ain't real.
Or it's our interpretation. It's the way that we see what they used to look like in their previous life. And they didn't walk around naked in their previous lives, unless they were nudists.
Okay. All right.
I don't know.
You
If there's any
hated that.
ghosts listening, I'm not partaking in
Are there
this. I
any
respect
ghosts
your
listening?
clothes.
That's right.
I respect Thank you for listening.
No, there's no
also.
ghost clothes.
Don't possess me.
I love
Don't possess me would be a great T-shirt. Don't possess me.
That's our hashtag.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I was very relieved. It's a weird combination seeing an empty mouse trap because you're like, it's terrifying that there are no mice. You're like, it's not a mouse. But then I was like, oh, thank God. I don't want to see a dead mouse. We already saw the dead snake in Friday the 13th. Like, don't make me see dead animals. So I was happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Okay.
something, I guess.
I feel like also in this movie, one of the scariest things to me is like how they use wind.
Yes.
It's just like there's so many exterior shots where it's like just the wind. It's like a storm is approaching.
Pazuzu is supposed to be like the demon of wind.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it all ties in.
That's
The
right.
wind, and then there's the scene where she's like, she's leaving work. We see her doing the scene, and then she's like, I'll just walk home.
Right before
And-
that, because I do think it's interesting that they show her on set, and the one line you really get is, if you want to affect any change, you have to do it within the system, she says to all these protesters. And I feel like...
Interesting. But later on, she doesn't heed that, does she? Or it depends on what system you're referring
exactly.
to.
She does within the Catholic system.
That's right.
Sort of.
Yeah, she went outside the Western medical system.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's always inside of some system.
I guess so. I'm leaving.
I'm ruining this. I'm sorry.
Boy.
Well, she walks home, and she's got like I love her outfit because she's got like the gloves, and she's got like the knit beret and the jacket
That's
and
right.
the
Yeah.
scarf, and she's like ready for fall. And that's when the music starts. The famous
Tubular bells.
so good.
It's really good.
And I'm off book. Look at you. I know all this shit.
But that's as soon as it started, it's like nothing's really happened yet. But as soon as that music started,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is it. Like game on, we're in.
Yeah.
I even bought the old 45 of that.
Whoa.
Really?
Yeah, Tubular Bells. Would play it over and over because I had a crush on Linda Blair.
Oh wow!
After that, yeah.
I saw pictures of her in roller. She looks just like Amy Schumer when she gets.
Oh,
to
when
be
she,
around.
that's right. Yeah. When she starts maturing. Yeah.
Yeah. You had a crush on her as the demon in The Exorcist.
I like a chick whose head revolves 360 degrees and spews vomit.
Says what's
Anyone
on
out there who's not already married?
We'll start a dating app
Yeah,
for
that's
you.
right.
Single demons. All the single demons.
D-date.
I like it. We're on to something.
That's right.
And then on her way home, she overhears two priests talking.
Oh,
She
yeah.
sees the priest a lot, and the priest sees her a lot. There's a lot
Yeah.
of like they're in the same town, and they're running into each other without acknowledging
Yeah.
the other one, which I thought was really good setup for like the slow build of
Yes.
them finally meeting.
It's also my first intro. I mean, I saw Fleabag first, but this is the first introduction to a hot priest, in my opinion.
Priest, yeah.
It might be the first depiction of a hot priest on film.
So do you think Father Karras is a hot... Yeah, he's handsome. He's kind of
think
tough
so.
looking.
He's a
yeah.
boxer.
He's a
Yeah.
boxer and a
Yeah.
smoker.
We see his
He
body
runs, he smokes.
in those pictures of him boxing.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
when he
That's
goes home.
right.
He kind of felt like, to me, like Gabriel Byrne meets Griffin Dunn.
Oh, wow. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Griffin Dunn's been coming up a lot.
Yeah, we love Griffin Dunn on this podcast.
I do.
Yeah.
Also, he's Jason Patrick's dad. I didn't realize till I looked it up.
Who?
The priest, Dr. Dr. Father Karras is.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's
Isn't that
interesting.
I didn't know that either. And there's that line he says, there's not a day in my life, it's the other priest, I think, trying to console him. There's not a day in my life I don't feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
Priests, doctors, lawyers, I've talked to them all. I don't know anyone who hasn't felt that. And I just found that comforting.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a priest who's losing his faith or questioning his
That's
faith.
right. That's right.
And that we all question ourselves and, maybe I'm not a failure, etc.
Yeah.
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 But yes, he used to be a boxer, hot,
Hot boxer.
speaks to his mom in Greek.
Greek hot boxer.
Yeah, at first when I was watching this, I was like, does he live with his mother?
Right.
And then it's like, no, he's just like a really nice guy.
But she lives in New York City, right? So he, I guess,
They
commutes.
do a big commute.
Yeah.
It's a big commute.
And she won't move.
That's right. And that was New York of the 70s. And that's how I grew up in New York and I went to high school in New York City in the 70s. And it was a shit hole. I mean, it was really yucky. And and that's what it was. It was this trash and graffiti. And there was no idea of, wow, this is a cool aesthetic. We can keep the flavor of it, but monetize it, make a lot of money, and make it cool to hipsters, people who grow beards and put in coffee shops where there are shooting galleries and disgusting, places where people urinated all day and night. And it's not the New York as it was, as it is today. But yeah, you see a lot of it. And interestingly enough, to me, at least, Friedkin, who also made The French Connection, which is a great movie.
I'm really wanting to rewatch it.
Oh, it's
the investigator kind of looks like Gene Hackman in this. Right, Gene Hackman's in French Connection.
Yes, but he was way younger. The investigator, Kinderman, was played by Lee J. Cobb, who was the big star and a kind of an iconic method-y actor. He was in On the Waterfront, and he became famous by doing Death of a Salesman on Broadway and in the movies. And he was a big, bustling, tough guy in those days.
Yeah.
They were big and strong, but by today's standards, they would just be kind of paunchy, middle-aged dudes, The French Connection was also shot in Brooklyn and New York in the 70s, and that is the real. You get a much wider version or visual of the New York landscape in those days. And sorry, I'm droning on and on. You see, you see where Father Karras, where his mother has to live. I mean, he does not want to keep her there.
And she refuses to leave.
Dimi, she doesn't want to go.
Yeah, Dimi, it's so
Dimi.
cute. It's so sweet. I think then we're at the Ouija board scene. Is that what your notes say, or anything you want to?
The Ouija board, guys. I don't like Ouija boards.
Yeah,
at all.
I'm guessing. I could guess you don't like Ouija
You've got
boards.
I don't
Jessica's
like
number.
them.
Yeah.
I played one once when I was a kid, and
that's
I
enough.
didn't do the one where it's like, if you're a spirit, let me talk to you. Because why would I do that? I did the one where you're supposed to just ask it questions, and it'll tell you something. And I asked it questions of the future, and they all came true.
What were they?
Yeah.
I was in 5th grade, so my question was, will the guy that I had a crush on, will Raul get me something for Valentine's Day? And it said yes, and I said what? And it spelled out a teddy bear. And then he got me a huge teddy bear,
Wow.
and I was like, this is witchcraft.
And you never told Raul about before
no.
that.
No,
You
no,
didn't
no,
give
no.
him hints.
I was in 5th grade. I'm not talking to boys very often.
Especially about your Ouija board
But
experience.
you're talking to boards.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was so scary. And I told my sister, because that was at a friend's house. I was like, they had a Ouija board, so we played it. And my sister freaked out. I was like, don't bring it home. You
my
can't play
gosh.
Ouija boards. She had heard that if you get a Ouija board and you throw it away, the spirits will haunt you forever.
This runs in the family.
Oh, yeah. And my sister and I have had 2 legit ghost experiences. And it was both, we were there together, so we can vouch. And
Tell.
Yeah.
What?
One was a dream thing. I was staying at her house. She lived in a really haunted basement house in Jackson, Mississippi. So, where she was, it's a lot of, old mansions that have been converted into, duplexes, basically, or triplexes. So it's, each level is its own apartment, and she got the basement level.
Uh-oh.
And she would hear someone in her kitchen.
Closer to hell there. isn't
Every
it?
night,
Yeah.
she would hear, dishes clanking and stuff, and
Yeah.
her Labrador would growl at the kitchen.
Yeah.
And one night I stayed with her, and I stayed in her guest room, and I came into her room in the middle of the night, and I was really scared, and I was like, I had a really bad nightmare. Can I sleep with you? And she was like, yes. And she was like, what was your dream? And I told her the dream, and she freaked out, and she was like, I literally just had that dream.
Oh,
And
I
it was
got goosebumps.
it was a dream where we were in her apartment, and there was a weird door on her ceiling, just naturally, because it used to be the old laundry chute. But it's boarded up, and I was like, there was someone coming through the door in in the ceiling to get to me. And she was like, I saw that.
Sorry. Sorry. Had to do it.
so mean. Look at my
Ghosts
hair.
are real, guys. We had this. Ugh.
That's right.
And the
You better
other
put
one
it-
was in France. We had a haunting in France, and my mom was there, and it was so scary that my
mean we
mom.
had
What was
wanted-
it?
Yeah, we had a haunting in France.
We stayed in this chateau in the middle of the French countryside. My mom's a professor, and we do study abroad, so it was her with a lot of her students, and my sister and I went. And every student had reported things like, what was going on last night? It's a lot of kitchen things. Someone was like, what was going on in the kitchen? There was a fight, and people were breaking plates. Nothing was broken.
Whoa.
And then other people had said other things. I don't remember the specifics. But we had it. It was pitch black in the middle of nowhere. When the sun goes down, you can't see the hand in front of your face. And we're on the 2nd floor. And in the middle of the night, all 3 of us woke up to a light outside our 2nd floor window that was illuminating the whole room. And my sister and I are both scaredy cats, and we were like, Mom, what is it? And she was like, it's probably the porch light. And we're like, it's not the porch light. It's illuminating the whole room. And so we were like, go check. Mom, go check. And my mother refused to check. And we never found out what it was. And the next night, my mom slept in bed with the both of us, all three of us in one bed. And we talked to every other student who stayed there, and none of them saw it.
Whoa.
And we never got an explanation. And when we talked to the owner of the chateau, it had been in her family for years, and she had said, oh, yeah, stuff like that just happens all the time. A lot of my family has died in this house.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. We'll be leaving now.
But
Yeah.
so when I see this Ouija board come out, and she says something, Reagan says something of like...
Captain Howdy.
Yeah, but
Yes.
she casually is like, oh, I play it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
No.
What I love
By
is
herself.
Oh, that's so
Chris's
creepy.
human mind immediately trying to cover for what she's seen because she reaches to touch it with her, and yes, it flies.
Zink.
It flies to Reagan's hand.
Oh, and I looked it up. That thing's called a planchette.
Yeah,
Planchet.
planchet.
The planchet flies to Chris's hand. Obviously, Reagan has not touched it. It moves on its own.
Yeah.
But Chris very quickly is like, blames Reagan. She's just trying. She's
Yeah.
seen it move on its own. But her brain doesn't let her process it as such.
Well, she's a linear, modern person, right?
Yeah.
Linear thinking. Who, you wouldn't immediately say, "Oh my God, a spirit has
It's
pulled
real.
the planchet away from me." Yeah, it's.
But it moved. We saw
moved, yeah.
It moved on its own. Reagan didn't do it.
Yeah, and she says that she talks to Captain Howdy.
We never really find out where that name comes from.
No, but it's a creepy name. And she
Yeah.
says, I make the questions and he does the answers.
Then I was confused. She puts Reagan to bed and takes away a magazine that Reagan is on the cover of.
Yeah, because they're celebrities.
Yeah, it's like
Is Reagan an actor too?
No, but
No.
it was like paparazzi photographs.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
then she
her
says,
out
like,
with
I
the
hate
daughter.
that picture of me.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she says it's of you. She says you look so mature in it. She doesn't like how Reagan. She says it's not even a good picture of you because Reagan looks mature. Wait until she matures into a demon.
That's right. Wait.
ready.
You better. That's right. There's no. Never mind.
And she brings up Burke Dennings and, like, are you going to marry
Yeah, how
him?
weird.
Yeah.
And so I guess I was not picturing who he ends up being at the party.
He looks like Roman Polanski.
A little bit, but yeah, you're right. But the actor who played him, Jack McGowan, was a renowned English character actor who played a lot of funny, offbeat, kind of like piratey, kind of Cockney dudes. And listen, man, I'm an idiot. So that, in a way, that was a very interesting role for him. I think he actually died shortly after that film.
did.
Anyway, yeah.
There's a lot of weird
Not on the
stuff.
stairs.
Yeah, not on the
happened.
stairs. I also look at him; he does not look healthy, and that's with makeup and lighting. Okay.
It's so interesting to me that we don't see that scene of him.
Yeah.
We just hear later, like she
Right.
comes home and she's like, I left her. Why'd you leave her alone? And the lady's like, I didn't leave her alone.
That's
Burke
right.
was here. And we don't see Burke.
That's
and
right.
then you find out later. It's such a slow way to,
Yes.
Yep.
to, like, almost for the audience to be like, is it real or not? We don't see it until the character sees it.
I think it's also great the way Friedkin again manipulates the audience. He, even the people who read the book, of which there were tens of millions, he's got to get you in. He's got to get the viewer in, and it's a distraction because we start questioning. If we don't see something, our minds are working, filling it in. And while we're doing that, he's doing something over here. He's that's out of our range of vision, and it's a filmmaker. It's a filmmaker's technique in a way because you have an audience. Hitchcock did it all the time. Tarantino does it. He just did it in this film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I love that. I love being taken for a ride because
Me
I think
too.
I'm so smart. And in a way, audiences are smarter. We've seen so much. Our vocabularies in film are expansive. So if you really are interested in making something that's different and moving the audience, even if it's to scare the crap out of them, you have to do that. I think you did a great job at that
I love
yeah.
that. I
by
saw,
not showing
I
it.
am terrified.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it only really
Yeah,
became.
you are. That's the back of your T-shirt. I am terrified.
Oh my God.
Don't possess me. I'm terrified.
I felt like it only became a definitive like horror movie to me 48 minutes in. And that's a bold move.
It's a
to
bold
take
move.
the audience along just to and even like saying that Ellen Burstyn's first line is like how much she loves her daughter. It's about that. It's about creating
That's right.
care for these characters
Yeah.
and making you care about their relationship. So there are stakes.
Yeah.
Well, and
I'm so
another thing we
invested.
don't see is she gets a call in the middle of the night, Ellen Burstyn, and she turns on the light, and then she rolls over, and Reagan's in bed with her, and she's like,
Yes.
what are you
Right.
doing here? And she says, my bed was shaking, I couldn't
Yeah.
sleep. But we didn't see the bed shaking.
Nope.
No, and then Chris goes to investigate the closet. What about the bed? She goes like looking everywhere but the bed. Whatever.
But it's so outrageous. The bed shaking,
Right.
forget it. There's no way that any from the Ouija board to the bed. By this time, it's all stuff that a child, let's say, would make up. Or
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
There's nothing in nature
And
to.
she's only seeing glimpses of it.
That's
she
right.
saw the Ouija board move,
She didn't even register it.
and she's hearing the noise in the attic, but she doesn't see the bed shake.
No, she's not hearing tubular bells as she walks through the street, or hasn't been to Iraq.
Yeah,
She's an actress.
She doesn't realize that she's in a horror movie.
That's right. If she did, then she'd say, "Oh, that's it. The planchet moving. Let's get the fuck out of here."
Yeah, let's
That's
call
right.
someone in now.
That's it. Now,
stop
no.
this.
Do you think that would have made a difference, or is it too late? Captain Howdy's already sort of started to worm his way in. Does moving save them, or they're fucked?
Well, if you've seen Poltergeist, doesn't it move with them? Oh no, it doesn't. No,
No,
they
they
move. They go to
leave.
the hotel, right? They
And
move
they
the
put the
TV
TV
out.
out.
That's right. I don't know. I mean, maybe spirits are area specific.
Well, that's if you follow Paranormal Activity, their logic is the house isn't haunted, the person is haunted.
Oh.
So moving doesn't help. So it just depends on what your beliefs are.
Yeah, I
at
think
this
he's
point.
already headed in. I think there's no stopping him. It's
Yeah,
just
it feels like
growing.
he's targeted her, but I feel like, if we got her down to that Catholic Church sooner.
Yeah, maybe.
But also, again, I don't want to ruin things, but if Satan is so terrifying and all powerful, and he can make everything malevolent, and from people in Iraq with cataracts to wind blowing to flames shooting out of candles, and it's really scary in the world. Why just do one person? Why just do like a preteen?
Gotta build up your
what's
strength.
okay. Listen to how she's
There was something-
justifying maybe she's not that powerful. He's just like a prankster and an asshole.
I love that.
Satan's an asshole. It's another
t-shirt.
T-shirt.
When Demi asks, if you're the devil, why not undo the straps yourself?
Yeah.
And the response is, that's much too vulgar a display of power.
Vulgar display.
I love that. I'm like, that's not a real answer, but I'm fully satisfied by that answer.
But also Satan in this, when they do go back and forth, can be very childish and
Yeah.
petty and not all powerful, and the way Satan is portrayed in other films, where it's this massive kind of galactic presence. It's just like a horrible sociopath, and doesn't have all the answers. Even when he says, when Father Karras speaks to him in Latin, Satan can't. He only knows a couple of
Right.
key
He
phrases,
moves to
like
French.
he can't really.
And then speaks backwards.
Yeah.
But then later on, yes. So it is. It's very. Yeah. Also, that's. I guess what I'm doing now is I'm trying to justify and trying to. But it's making me think, and now I'm afraid.
Well, and for me, Twin Peaks is like the scariest thing I've ever seen. So when they're like, it's English backwards, I was like, oh no, this is the Black Lodge. Like, I have a real thing with people speaking backwards because of Twin Peaks. This is setting off like all of my red flags.
I love it.
But how about that? One of my favorite and one of the scariest scenes in that movie sequences are when he is in his apartment, Father Karras, alone, listening to Reagan's voice on the fucking tape recorder by himself. It really messes with me.
And then
you
the
hear it
phone
backwards.
rings.
Oh, that's another jump scare.
love it.
Oh, yeah.
I love that he's our proxy in that moment.
Oh,
he's
absolutely.
Just as scared as
Because
we
we're
are.
all drawn in. Again, it's a great filmic technique.
Yeah.
Brings us in. We're all leaning over that, the reel-to-reel tape recorder, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And not only does the phone scare the shit out of us, but it jumps to an immediate close-up and he's so expressive. He has dark hair, white eyes, very similar to the kind of interspersed Satan, demon-faced, right?
Right,
That kind of
yeah.
subliminal, it's kind of weird.
I didn't
and
notice.
yes,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, you
well
see it in
later
The
on,
Nightmare.
you see it in the nightmare.
I didn't connect their faces kind of looking similar in that
Well,
moment.
but then later on, when he finally says, "Come into me," there's a brief glimpse of him in that makeup, right? In that guise, very similar to
Of
the
Karis
demon
in
face.
it?
Yeah.
Whoa.
You got to look at it again, where
Oh
right
my
before he leaps
gosh.
out the window.
Oh,
I'm
well,
getting the
'cause
chills right now.
Well, before he leaps out the window, the demon moves into him.
Oh,
I thought you meant earlier. Okay.
No, I don't want to
think
talk
it's
about it anymore.
interesting.
Oh, let's talk about something else, please.
I like that his name is Damien, which you don't actually find out till later.
Yeah,
Right, The
that
Omen.
name scares me.
The Omen. That's another one, The Omen. Oh, I should have brought that up. That scared the piss out of me, too.
Still haven't seen it.
Oh, it's terrifying. But
Oh, yeah.
along the lines of this, it's Satan. It's an invasion of what we know as what we assume is normal behavior. It's a kid. It's birthday parties.
Oh, the
It's-
kid is so scary.
so scary.
Kids that are scary really get to me
Damien.
too, because I'm uncomfortable with children in general when they're nice.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, like a kid that's evil.
That made me really
It's
want
like
to
the top
ask
of
you
my
a
list.
question because, yes, there's a point. I wrote it down somewhere. But there's a point where I'm like, okay, if that's my kid, I'm terrified. Like, I know that I love you. You're my daughter, and I want you to be safe, but also I need to get the fuck out of here because you're going to murder me.
Yeah.
And you have 2 kids.
I do.
At what point do you go, like, peace, you fend for yourself
I
now?
mean, I don't think you ever do. I think you'll die before they do. You'll take a bullet and you
Even if
stand by
they're the
them.
ones killing you.
I haven't gotten to that point yet. Close. I'll tell you when that happens.
But if you start to worry that your kid is possessed, like, what do you do?
Well, what do you do? I mean, you do everything you can to dispossess them, but to get them dispossessed. But also, when you alluded to this as an allegory for alcoholism or madness, or what do you do when if your child is an addict or if they're sick or if, and that's a real question.
Yeah. And I think at first, which Chris does, you pretend it's not happening.
Well, yeah, or just you just it's explained away by something that's common.
Well, she runs a million tests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she really does try to help her.
I noticed when somebody calls and they're like, is everything okay? She's like, oh, just fine. And even when Reagan pees on the floor, it's very like, everything's fine. She's just not feeling well. So there
Yeah.
is still that feminine instinct to be okay. Everything's
Yeah.
fine. I don't need any help. Everything's good.
I mean, she wouldn't just say, "Are you okay?" Yeah, it's just Satan. She's just possessed, so now she's in the pissing stage, the carpet ruining phase of possession. Yeah.
The other priest, I forget his name, is bringing flowers into the church and sees the Virgin Mary
Oh, yeah,
with
defiled.
blood on her hands,
Oof.
cone tits that are also bloody.
That's right. Which presages Madonna's whole act for many years with the conical brassiere.
That was
Yes.
exactly what I thought it when I saw
Yeah,
it.
but she also has like a bloody cone dick. Did you notice
Yes,
that too?
yes, which presages my own act that I did for several years, Bloody Cone Dick.
I thought they never really explain who is defiling the church.
Well, they try to connect the two.
The investigator is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't ever really get an answer.
But it's a
Satan.
building of the general sense of
Obviously.
malevolence. Like there's something in the air, something
Yeah.
out of the ordinary, where everything is now getting ugly.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. It makes no linear sense necessarily. And again, it's so specific to this one girl who's being possessed or this one priest that's being possessed. Like in a sense, what's the big fucking deal? What doesn't Satan have better things to do than pick on like 2 people? And it's like he just has nothing to do between wars, I guess.
Well, the theory that I like
Oh, here we go. Here
is
it goes.
that they mention later that the Von Sydow character, God, what is his name? I keep forgetting.
Marin, Father
Thank
Marin.
you. That Father Marin faced off with the demon before.
That's
that
right.
There was a possession already.
Yeah.
So this
That took
might
months,
be, yes,
they
and
say.
nearly killed him, they say.
That's right.
So I think in some ways it's about getting the priest.
Oh, even, yes. Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
okay, all
trying to
right.
lure him. But I read that in the book, Kinderman scrapes paint off of one of Reagan's sculptures
Hmm.
and sends it to a lab to have it analyzed, and it matches the paint from the desecration of the Virgin Mary.
Wow, that's great. That's a really great detail, I
Right?
think.
So it was Reagan, I guess. In the book.
Oh my
at
God!
least.
I was so young at the time. I didn't read the book, but I do recall one of the criticisms was that the character of Kinderman in the movie was not even an effective device, a
Yeah.
dramatic device.
He didn't really need to be there.
He didn't need to be there, although there were things happening that that rose to the level of crimes,
Right.
or at least that would involve authorities, right? Not just doctors. There was,
It makes sense that he would be there, but then
Yes.
they don't utilize him really.
yeah, but that particular thing is really great, and it builds. Yeah, it builds more of a complicated or complex kind of foundation for this character. Maybe in those, like they still have to come in at a certain time and at a certain budget and appeal to. So
Right.
it's taking a book and reducing it to its, I guess, most
essential.
essential elements. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Like, fucking yourself with a cross. More
Well, that's
important stuff.
That's yeah.
That's
You need that in every
scenes.
film. That's right.
Then we're at the psych ward. Maybe I'm crazy, but I was.
They cut out the cross fucking sequence in Finding Nemo too.
Oh my god,
That's everywhere. They're
Budget,
everywhere. Yeah, we didn't have the time to do it. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Okay.
This is probably interesting to no one but me, but I was so certain one of the extras they cut to looks just like young Alvy Singer's mom in Annie Hall.
I didn't notice that.
When she's upset that he's talking about the universe is expanding. I have to
Yeah.
look it up, but I could have sworn. I rewound it and stared at her face, and I was like, that's his mom.
Maybe.
Maybe. It looked just like her.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
No. That's important.
Well, Karis's mom is really sick.
Yeah.
She gets put in a mental hospital.
Yeah. Awful.
And then we find out later through like other people's conversation that she died and nobody found her for a few
Oh,
days.
that's right.
hate
But she was
those.
back at her house because he got her
so
out,
it's the
right?
passing of time.
That's right. And also in that particular scene, that sequence, when they're in the institution, it is also malevolent and scary and just people laying there. I mean, suddenly, once you have this filter on, or this lens, rather, everything is terrifying, right?
Yeah.
When really it's tragic and
Yeah. Well, and he walks in and all these other patients are like grabbing at him and taking his collar.
yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
just trying to get to his mom and everyone's trying to stop him.
Yeah.
Yes. And in a way, it's, I think, a comment on poverty because later we'll see Reagan when she seems to be mentally ill and having the means to take care of her in a real way versus his mom being kind of stuffed in with a bunch of other crazy poor people.
Well, yeah, he says, like, to his uncle, can't we move her? And he's like, to where? Who's going to pay for a
yeah,
private
who has the money
hospital?
for that? Yeah, you could have been a psychiatrist. We could have been living on Park Avenue.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Instead,
so
you
rough.
chose. Yeah, it is rough.
When he's like, your mom would have been living in a penthouse.
That's right. The guilt.
Yes. Catholics and Jews, man.
Yes,
A
yeah,
lot of
that's
it.
right. That's right. It's interesting because okay, I'm gonna either sound really intelligent or just again probably not. In the Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo, of course. There's on the far side on the wall. There's a depiction of I don't remember who, but somebody being dragged down into hell, and he's looking at us, and he's mortified and scared and sad, and demons are pulling at him and pawing at this person while dragging them down. That's sort of depicted when he walks into that
Yes.
asylum,
Yeah.
and they're pawing at him, and he's really descending into hell. How about that, huh? That's
I
pretty
wish-
intellectual. Pretty good, huh?
I wish that the ghosts listening to this podcast could have seen that because your expressions as you were doing that were really good.
How do you know
You're
I'm
an
not
actor.
possessed by them?
Ooh. I have to pee. This seems like a good pausing point.
Okay, on the carpet?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll go right here.
You're going to die up there, and we'll be right back. Back to-
I almost said Goebbels earlier, but then I feel like people tell me I'm wrong. But I'm glad
They
that
said
you backed me.
Gobbles.
I know.
Like about a turkey, like a cute turkey. Here's
That's
Gobbles
true.
the turkey, who's
Gobbles.
also a
Gobbles.
Nazi.
Gobbles.
Gobbles. Look, he's eating
Goebbels.
Gobbles.
But then people have made fun of me when I say it right. It's also like
I
it's
don't know
the-
what it is. What is it?
Goebbels.
he was a Nazi. It's
Well, he was
spelled-
the minister of
G-
propaganda.
I went to
Yeah.
public school in Texas. I don't know anything about history.
Kids
We're
today.
Jews, so-
Kids today. That's right. Are you Jewish?
In
You never
Texas, we went pretty quickly past the Holocaust.
That's nice.
Although I listened to how he said it in the movie because he says you never went bowling with Gobbles either. I suppose.
Gobbles. Well, he may have been English, and again, a
that's true.
disdainful pronunciation, purposefully
Oh, yeah, he
mispronounced.
kind of reminded me of like a Dudley Moore,
Very,
kind of
yeah.
character.
Yeah, drunken.
Oh, God,
Like
so
Arthur.
Yeah.
If we pick
Horrible,
up from after
horrible.
the psychiatric hospital, I think we're at the party. No?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about it though.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is there anything else you want to say about it?
I mean, you're going to listen to this and edit it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. I will.
God.
I guess.
Jesus.
Now that you insist.
There's no SD card.
Yeah, I took it out.
Jessica's
long ago.
nuts.
Oh, God.
She wanted to meet you, Stephen.
And now that we have you
Now that we have you
here,
here.
I've never seen Misery, but I feel like this could be.
That's
That
right.
could be it.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
One thing we left out of the party that I love is when he says, "There seems to be an alien pubic hair in my drink."
Oh, my God.
remember that line?
Yeah. Oof.
That was great.
Right, presaging Clarice Thomas's
Oh, yeah.
and Anita Hill's hearing.
Pubic hair on the
Pubic hair on the Pepsi or the Coke, yeah. Sales of Pepsi plummeted, but sales of pubic hair were up, like all over the country.
Pepsi can't get a break. If it's not Coke, it's pubic hair.
That's right. Again, another T-shirt. Yeah, really, you're going to make so much money, but you have to activate it. You've got to do this. You can't just say it. You can't just be an idea person.
We got to be a T-shirt.
This is where I've gone wrong my
Idea
whole
gal.
life.
This is where you're making money on this goddamn podcast. T-shirts.
I do wonder if there's supposed to be a comment on showbiz, because at the party is where we have that priest talking about being the headliner in heaven for all eternity, and it plagues the demon plagues the daughter of a famous actress. So I don't know.
Well, things really get scary when Chris goes into the room and the bed is shaking. We get to finally
Right.
see it.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, oh no, there's something wrong. I
Yeah.
can't just.
Yeah.
Because earlier after the party, she's like, you'll be fine, just take the pills that
Right.
the doctor gave you.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
just
this
nerves,
is bigger than
she
pills.
says.
Yeah.
She says
Yeah.
it's just nerves.
Ugh. The scariest part to me is Reagan going in for her procedure. That scared me more than anything else in the movie. I've had a lot of procedures, but the shot of the mustachioed doctor's arm pushing down as he's like either injecting something or pulling
Is
out
that
some
into her
blood.
neck or something?
Yes.
Is that-
Yeah,
that's right.
and then you get the blood spurting out.
Oh,
Yeah.
my whole body tensed up. Yeah.
And this is where I have an aside on this movie.
Oh, here
Ooh,
we
I
go.
have one too.
Here
Go
we
ahead.
go.
Because the guy who plays the radiological technologist in the scene
Yeah.
then went on to be a convicted killer in real life.
What?
Insane.
Yes.
I read up on this too.
So basically what happened was Friedkin went to NYU medical school, and when he was preparing this, and he wanted to view some medical procedures to pick one to put in the film, and he wanted it to be realistic. And he saw a cerebral, this is where I'm not going to be able to talk, a cerebral angiography.
Sounds right.
Angiogram.
Angiogram.
They also say later it's an arteriogram. Arteriogram.
Okay. All right.
And he thought it was so disturbing that he was like, that's got to be in the movie. And I want everyone who is working on it right now to just be cast in the movie. And this guy, his name is Paul Bateson,
Let's give him a lot of publicity. Yeah, good. Okay.
he was a radiological technologist. And so he got a part in the movie, and he's the one that talks to her through the procedure, and then went on to murder a film critic for Variety.
Wow.
But he confessed to that, and he was convicted of it. He went to prison for 24 years. They think he killed at least like 6 more people.
What?
It was they weren't able to convict him on it, but there was a series of these bizarre killings. But he was only convicted of 1 murder, and he was paroled in 2003. And nobody knows what happened to him after that. But it just makes the movie so much, it's such a scary movie. And then it's like, oh, that guy then went on to actually be a murderer.
And the Zodiac Killer, in some of his letters, was praising The Exorcist.
Oh my God.
Also, this reminded me of an experience I had in a concentration camp, which sounds like I'm a time traveler. But I went to go see like the ghettos and the concentration camps in Poland, and we were in the Lodz ghetto, and I was opening a can of pickles, and I sliced my finger really badly, and there were medics on this trip with us, so somebody was like pinning me down, being like, it's okay, calm down, while they stitched me up, and I don't have any, they're like sewing my finger back together, I'm screaming, but the girl trying to comfort me and like hold me down had been sprayed in my blood. So she's like trying to calm me down. It's almost funny in hindsight, but she's just like decorated with my blood. So this scene probably brought me back to that. But this to me was the scariest part of the movie.
And also you can see that we've come a long way technologically. You know, when she has MRIs done, and it's really loud.
Yeah,
and,
it's so scary.
Bam, 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 bam. Really,
They still are that way, no? The last time I had one,
are
it
they
was like that.
loud?
Yeah.
And Reagan, throughout all these procedures, is like screaming and crying
Oh, it's
and
terrible.
sweating.
Yeah.
And she's just going through torture.
Yes.
It's almost as if the character of Satan just wanted to torture this girl. It's not like he wanted power to use her as you know what I mean, as a
Yeah.
means to infiltrate the world. He just delighted in this particular girl being tortured. So while she's in the hospital, he didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
We're assuming Satan's a man. So yeah, he didn't have to do anything. He just let her suffer.
Oh, it was brutal.
And they keep coming up with like kind of different answers for like, here's what our findings tell us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The sound of her scans sliding into frame is killer. It was so scary. It was like a demonic copy machine.
Yeah.
I don't know what it
Yeah,
was, but
that's right.
it scared me.
You know, picture this on a big screen. I mean, I'm sure we all saw this either at on our televisions or computer screens. These were on huge screens, and so you're involved. You're in it. You're in a dark movie theater for a couple hours. You're immersed in this.
Well, there's
Yes.
so many loud sounds in this movie that just make
Yeah.
you jump and then make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because that sound for the machine just keeps going.
Yeah.
So it's like past the first jump, you're just like, at a certain point, I was like, make it stop.
And then she says, "Mother, make it stop."
Oh, Mother, make it
And then
stop.
it becomes a totally different voice. And to me, I was like, now we're in a horror movie. The voice change. So to me, 48 minutes in was when I was like convinced it was a horror movie. Even
Well,
though
they
it's
think it's a
scary.
lesion in her temporal lobe, but then they do all those scans and they don't find anything.
They say, I think it's time we look for a psychiatrist. And she drives home. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that was interesting to me to see how psychiatry was just so fringe. It was
Yeah.
treated with such disdain. Really, and now it's everybody has one,
Right.
or two.
Yeah. I got a psychiatrist and a therapist.
Look at you! I have two therapists.
And 2 psychiatrists?
No, just two therapists.
So no meds. Not that you have to.
No,
answer.
not yet. Not yet. No, I medicate the old-fashioned way. Glug glug.
Nice. I do Prozac.
Papa needs his medicine.
Shout out.
That's Tito's.
The drive home, the score is bonkers, and I love it. It's like Harry Nilsson's Lime in the Coconut meets Psycho. It's the weirdest mixture, and it's
That's
so
funny.
good.
Two good references. I
Thank
like that.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Then she closes Reagan's window for the second time, shivering.
Yeah.
And this is where I really start to
And
think
puts
about
the blanket on her. Because in the beginning, she closes the window and puts the blanket back on her, and it's like the exact same scene, but it's so,
much more loaded.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's cold.
Yes.
Cold in there.
And this is where I started to think that being possessed and being depressed are basically both just like having a terrorist that lives inside you.
Yeah.
It's like
yes.
you're destroying yourself from the inside.
That's right. I like that.
And this is when the lights start flashing on and off in the house, and my lights started flashing on and off in my
Jessica's-
house.
This is the trigger. Right.
And I don't like it. I don't like darkness. So, like, anytime they're using the lights in this movie, it's like it's setting me off. It's just like, why can't it just be okay?
Do you have a lot of candles at home?
No.
Flashlights?
Yes.
Lanterns?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot of the flashlights that you have to.
Crank?
Yes. So that.
Isn't that exhausting?
No, but my husband's theory is like, it's okay. It'll always work because I'm so scared of like
Yeah.
blackouts and being in the dark. So he's got all sorts of like things for me to be able to reach
It's
for.
nice.
He's very nice.
They also have an agreement.
She's insane.
I don't know if she told you this while I was downstairs. They also have an agreement that if Jessica says their place is haunted, it's haunted, and they move.
Which has happened once.
Okay.
So that was part
That's
of
my
like
favorite thing about Jessica.
Well, that was I've been with my husband for 14 years.
Right.
And after I saw Paranormal Activity and I was really upset about it because the girl says that the place is haunted and the boyfriend's like, yeah, crazy. I was like, oh, if this relationship is going to continue, that can't be something that would ever happen. If I say it's haunted, you know I'm a rational person and you agree and we move. And that happened in an apartment in Glendale and we lived there for a week. And then we were gone. Leave the possessions. We got to flee Glendale.
It's my favorite.
I want you to get stronger. I want you to take this bull by the horns, by its ghostly horns, and say, repeat after me. I will not be afraid
I will not be afraid
of you.
of you, but don't possess me.
But don't possess me. You can't possess me.
Asterisk. Please don't possess me.
Don't possess through the asterisk. Stay away from that asterisk. Okay.
This is
Please, let's go
psychiatry.
on. Oh, my God.
Well, they refer, I think this is when the other guys come to the house and see her, the psychiatrists, and they refer to it as I know the word somnambulance, but I can't say this other word, somnambuliform possession.
Jesus. Okay.
And they say it starts with a conflict or a guilt, which again to me feels like depression. It starts with a bad feeling. And then they suggest an exorcism.
Well, she gets hypnotized also.
Oh, that's
We
right.
get that scene
Oh.
where he says, is there someone inside of you?
Oh,
And
yes.
Reagan says, sometimes. And he goes, who is it? And she says, I don't know.
Right.
And then she looks up at him and crunch, right? Doesn't she grab
Yeah.
Yeah.
grabs him in the
Yes.
yarbles? When does she start causing mayhem up in the room? Is this after? It's after that, right?
It's
Where she
after
becomes
that.
Yeah.
violent. And doesn't she slam her mother across the face? And then the
Yes.
bureau
Oh, yeah.
comes in.
She throws her against the
That's right.
room,
That's
throws
right.
her across the room, which I guess that there was an issue with the harness, and it actually caused issues for Burston for the
Really?
rest of her life.
Oh God. Okay.
Yikes! Yeah, that's not fun.
Another scary thing related to
Yeah.
The Exorcist.
A lot of scary things.
Scary things.
And
I-
Burke dies.
Yeah, and immediately, like you're saying, the audience feeling smart, feeling ahead of it. I'm like, she did it.
Well,
Yeah.
especially when the policeman is like, oh, I don't think it was natural because
Yes.
his head was found turned
Yeah.
upside down, turned backwards.
That's right. Yeah, that's
And like,
horrible.
I don't think a fall's gonna do that.
I like that he allowed for the possibility, though. It could happen. It's just very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Yeah, and we see later when Karis goes out the window that then you see like later the window boarded up. And so I thought it was interesting with Burke that it's a similar death. It's thrown out the window, falls down the stairs, but the window's not boarded up. So she must have just thrown him out of the window
The open
without
window.
Yeah, she didn't throw him
causing-
through it. She
without
just opened
causing
the
any
window.
injury to the structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like also scary to me that it's like she was that in control.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so deliberate and meticulous.
And then just there's no evidence.
Or look, I mean, we're going to go down Satan road. Maybe she just suggested that he open the window and throw himself
God.
out, and just and maybe he fell under his Bizazu's spell and launched himself out.
Oh yeah, because he with Father Karras, he can speak in other voices and say like things that
yeah.
aren't true, and he could have said
That's right.
something in a voice that Burke recognized.
That's true.
Father, can you help an altar boy?
Oh, that moment gets me. It's like a gut punch. He says that and then something about his mother right after.
Oh yes, why you do this to me, Demi?
You're so
It's
good.
interesting, but everybody's guilty in this. Not everybody, but yeah, Father Karras. Somehow the demon enters him through his guilt, through his self-loathing, in a sense.
And I think he's also driven to help because of his guilt. It's like a chance
Absolutely,
to set things right.
That's right. That's right.
And I love that. All right, we're coming up on the iconic "Let Jesus fuck you" scene, where she says, "Lick me." How did a studio head okay any of this? I'm so glad they did, but how?
Oh, it's so violent. That scene.
Yes, that's the second
So
scariest
violent.
scene to me.
Crazy violence.
And then he says, "Your cunting daughter," in a British accent, the voice coming out of her mouth. I love that line.
And I got to think, and now that stuff is relatively commonplace. The language and stuff. Cunt is used all over the place.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of delightful the way it's used here. And in general, your
I
cunting
agree.
daughter.
Your cunting daughter.
Very
I
good.
have some great news. Your cunting daughter has gotten a C.
Now she really needs a doctor because she's just been stabbing herself in the cooter.
Well,
with a
she
cross.
starts getting like scratches all over her face too, which is just terrifying.
unsanitary. Who knows what's under her nails at this point?
That's right.
Well, and I'm also thinking of like seeing to the end that she is okay and stuff. It's like, is she just gonna have like scars all
I
over her body
know.
from this?
Yeah, well, that's right. In the end, you can see the time has passed where she's starting to heal, right? But these are wounds. I mean, later on when they're spraying her with holy water and her flesh is getting ripped and burned.
But yeah, her emotional scars will last forever, obviously.
Well, and after that scene is when Chris goes to Karis. We
That's
finally
right.
get them meeting, and she
That's right.
wants his help
Yes. Oh, I love
because she's
that.
desperate.
Yeah.
She is. It's so sad. And she has like a black eye. She's
Oh,
wearing
Because she
God.
gets
sunglasses.
punched by Reagan.
And he says they don't do exorcisms anymore since they learned about mental illness. And I like that they sort of serve as euphemisms for each other. Like at the time, mental illness was so distasteful, or I guess at the time when they would do exorcisms, mental illness was so distasteful a prospect that they blamed possession. And now we can sort of see mental illness reframed through the lens of possession. They like flipped. Does that make sense?
It does, but also he does mention that it's all about. It's not that demonic possession is a real thing. It's just that if the person who's supposedly possessed believes it,
Right.
then they could be treated in a way that kind of complements their own belief. We can then I'll use the cure for it that you will then believe in.
Right. Like, well, it's all psychosomatic.
That's
but
right.
We'll
That's right.
address
That's right. We'll address
the cause
it using the same terminology and the same language,
so that you can believe that
right,
you've been
that you've been-
exorcised.
Well, and
That's
we
right.
see that with the holy water. He puts holy water on her, and then later he's like, that was just tap water.
That's right.
Which I take to mean that even the demon is vulnerable to psychosomatic experiences.
Well, that's what I meant about the pettiness and the kind of the childishness and shallowness of this demon, this all-powerful kind of subterranean god in a way. This is, it confused me. But maybe confusion, and even Marin at some point says he's there to confuse you.
Right.
Well, in my interpretation, gosh, of this scene is, so we hear like Karras go and he needs evidence in order to actually get the church to sign off on doing an exorcism. And it was things like she needs to speak in a language she doesn't know.
Right.
And what does the demon do but speaks English backwards, which isn't proof.
Yeah.
And like, the holy water thing and the demon reacts, but it was just tap water. And there's like a part of me when I was watching this, it's like, that demon is so smart. It doesn't want to get exercised.
It doesn't want to get, that's
so it's
great
not
too.
giving any evidence.
That's right. Karras asks Ellen Burstyn, Chris McNeil, is that her name, Chris McNeil? Says, did Reagan know that my mother died?
Yeah.
No. Karras. Right? Doesn't she say that?
Yeah, she's in here with us.
She's
Your
in
mother's
here
in
with
here with
us.
us, Karras. Can you help an old altar boy,
Would you like me to
Father?
take a message? Right.
Oh, it's a fucking gut punch.
Can we start talking about Mercedes McCambridge and who does the voice?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh my
amazing.
God, so amazing! And there's a couple of YouTube videos where she discusses it at length. She was, of course, a prodigious smoker and drinker, and
She said it helped her, which
it
makes
really
sense.
helped her. And the wheezing, the horrible kind of breathing and wheezing.
And that
It's
they
just-
really had her tied down when she did all the voices.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Seriously? Okay,
Yeah,
no,
because
okay.
Rankin wanted it to be like the same kind of like struggling.
Whoa. Another horror story that I read up on is her son killed his 2 kids and then his wife and then himself.
What? Mercedes
Jeez.
McCambridge's son?
Yep. More horrors linked to this movie.
That's crazy. It's like the Poltergeist. When
Yeah.
there's all those crazy deaths with the Poltergeist franchise.
Right, like the movie itself is haunted or something. I love the turn that when she does finally want the exorcist, the priest says, I've never met one priest who's performed an exorcism, not one.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of just thinking, oh, Catholics are crazy. They'll have some sort of plan. But nope, we don't do that, I think is a great turn that I didn't see coming. And her delivery is so good when she says, yeah, well, it just so happens that someone very close to me is probably possessed and needs an exorcist. She almost whispers it. She's like trying not to cry. And it's the same way someone might talk about a suicidal child or something. It's just pure emotion.
Can we talk a moment about Ellen Burstyn and her greatness?
Yes,
Oh, she's
please.
amazing in this.
She's always been fantastic. And she plays this horror movie, and it's only known as a horror movie, in such a beautiful,
Yes.
not withheld, but gosh, she's just controlling. She doesn't want to fear the worst. And she's so measured in a
So
beautiful way.
restrained.
So restrained. And I mean, I remember her, she's in another great movie called The Last Picture Show, Peter Bogdanovich, where she plays sort of a faded beauty who's been having an affair with, some cowboy and it's so bittersweet and nuanced. And I have to say the same about this performance. Again, which
Yeah.
is primarily known as a horror film. There's beautiful acting going on in this.
Yes.
Yeah,
think
she's
that's
great
what
in
gets
Requiem
me.
for a Dream.
Oh, well,
also.
that's,
I mean,
that's, to me, that's way
Alice.
more terrifying than The Exorcist. That's the reality of The Exorcist in a way. I mean, you
Yeah.
take that character, is Reagan McNeil, right? That character in another era would have been considered possessed by demons.
Right.
As opposed to all the fucking drugs and insanity that she
Yes.
manifested, yeah.
But she really, I think, elevates the movie. I mean,
Completely.
all of the performances.
Everybody.
do.
Well, young Linda Blair was really fantastic.
Oh, she's
Yes.
amazing.
really great.
And then Mercedes' role in
God.
making that, shaping, it's incredible. I also love that he says, you probably know as much about possession as most priests. That's so scary. And it also mirrors my experience with doctors having seen, psychiatric or otherwise, that like a well-versed hypochondriac tends to know as much as doctors do.
That's right.
I was on a medication that was giving me panic attacks, and then my psychiatrist was like, here, take this for the panic attacks. And then my friend was like, you should try an SSRI, you should be on Prozac. And she was right. She was my real psychiatrist. So she says, you tell me for a fact that an exorcism wouldn't do any good. You tell me that. And I feel like you can sub in diagnosis or medication.
Right.
You don't know what's going to help.
It also speaks to the possibility that even the Catholic Church doesn't quite buy every line in the Bible. It's like, well, for the most part, we believe, but come on now.
Yeah, that
Even
exorcism stuff.
that's ridiculous.
That's a typo.
Marin is an outlier. He's some fringe guy.
I did find on Wikipedia, because I looked up Ouija boards.
Yeah.
And on Wikipedia, it does say, there's like a note that says the Catholic Church has always spoke out against Ouija boards because they think it could lead to demonic possession.
Wow. And how do they explain it, I wonder?
I don't know. I mean, from what I was reading, it was saying like they think this is information that you shouldn't have. What the Ouija board is going to tell you is information we shouldn't be privileged.
They're in your camp. They agree with you.
Yeah.
Great. Me and the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck in hell.
They won't like me. I'm not religious.
You're superstitious, though.
Very.
Well, there you go. So you're halfway there.
Also, I love that they think she might not be possessed, but she looks like a literal monster. She doesn't look like someone who's sick. Like her eyes are a different color.
Yeah.
Her flesh is like she's spewing green stuff.
It's so cold. The room is
so
so
cold. That's right. There are things that begin to overwhelm our version of what a normal diagnosis would be at this point, right? The supernatural has entered the room, literally.
You can see everybody's breath.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
Yeah, that, just normal mental illness stuff.
That's all.
Just need a
And
psychiatrist.
it's Boston. It's cold.
And then when she meets Karis and she vomits and it goes like in his mouth.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, he always had, and he never ate vegetables as a kid. So that's the upside.
Pea soup.
And that's when he says, Karis says, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damon Karis. And she's like, I'm the devil.
I'm the devil.
Do you think that it is the devil? Or you think it's a devil, a demon? I think she's lying. I think it's just a demon pretending to have higher rank than he actually has.
Well, at one point, doesn't it say, we are legion, we are many? Isn't that the whole thing about the devil? It's not just, some being with horns and a six-pack and hooves, that it's the collective. It's kind of the collective malevolence of humanity bottled into, in this case, this one girl, this one voice, or she's in here with us. That really freaked me out.
Yeah.
And then even when she said, I'm the devil, that again made me say, come on. It was too literal and too cartoonish.
Yeah.
It was the stuff that went past my expectations of who the devil was, a guy with a beard,
I like the cartoonishness of that because it's like you were talking about that pettiness. It is this almost
so petty. That's right. That Satan is speaking his language, speaking the priest's language.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the devil, asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like puffing up in this
That's right.
sort of arrogant.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Even after like Karis goes and he sees all this, when he goes back to the church to ask for an exorcism, they say, like, do you think it's real? And he's like, no, not really.
But they're
But it's
trying to
like-
exhaust every possible explanation, every rational explanation for what's happening.
Well, and this guy who's questioning his faith is like just questioning everything.
Right.
He's in exactly the right/wrong place for this all to be happening around him. When he gets the call and sees the help me on her stomach, and it looks like somebody wrote it from the inside of her stomach.
That's the whole point.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah. And then,
Then they're like, all right, we'll do an exorcism. We need to get Marin. And
Yeah,
then
get
it's
that guy from Iraq.
Yeah. Isn't he
Remember the
working
opening of this movie?
is he available?
the balls to bring him back an hour and a half later. I love it.
Marin balls. Did they use a Marin baller? Good night, everyone.
I'm editing that out.
Okay. What? Oh, angry editing.
No.
Well, I do like, they're like, where is he now? And they're like, he's at Woodstock. And I was like, he's at the concert?
What's he doing there? Teaching? I wanted them so badly to be like rocking out. But no.
That's right.
He's working on another book. But I had the same
Yes.
thought. I also love that they're like, don't you think he's too old, Tom? And I'm like, nah, bitch, it's going to be 40 years before he's the three-eyed raven. He's got so much time.
Well, and then I wrote down it's an hour, 34 minutes when we see him get out of the car in the darkness.
Oh, the
the
iconic-
iconic, the poster of the movie.
So good.
Dung.
Yeah, like
So
he's
good.
here to take care of business.
Yeah.
I saw that you jotted this down, that Damien thinks there are 3 personalities, and he says there's only one. The certainty, I don't know, to me that felt like it meant something. I don't have interpretations, but I'd love to hear what you think. Maybe it's like all evil looks the same. Evil is evil. But or is that his undoing? He doesn't listen to him.
Earlier when she's at the doctor, she's kind of like wanting to talk about could this be like split personality.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does kind of feel like when Marin's like, no, it's only one. He's like, no, this isn't split personality. This is a possession. This is one entity is possessing her. This isn't like a psychosis.
Right.
Right.
And that also speaks to maybe a tactic that he needs to use. He needs to remind Karis to not listen to the multitude of personalities and the threats and distractions. It's just one. Focus on one. It's Satan, not your mother,
Right.
not this homeless guy, not any other voice or identity he or it will try to use to confuse you.
Yeah, because my interpretation is it's not really his mother talking.
No,
it's
no.
the
Of course
devil.
not.
It's just the one person.
That's right.
Or one thing.
But when he says he thinks there are 3, I don't think he's counting his mom as one.
3 demons,
Yeah.
3 times. Yeah.
That he's
Well,
counted.
again, when we hear my favorite terrifying sequence that we discussed, when he's listening to the tape, and you hear the voices, and they're talking to each other, that's horrifying to me.
And also very clearly mirrors a certain type of mental illness, once again. But yeah, it is so
Yeah.
fucking scary.
Oh, it's so scary.
I think my equivalent of your fear, Jessica, of being possessed is like going crazy. I'm more afraid of losing my mind, and they're not that different in a lot of ways.
yeah.
I hope Jessica becomes possessed by you. And so your crazy spirit goes into her. Now, what a podcast that would be,
Oh
huh?
my
I hope
gosh.
none of this happens.
Oh,
I don't want to be
it's all going to happen.
Don't
I'm
possess
just getting
me.
afraid.
No, thank you.
Don't possess me.
I do like when Marin gets there, though. Karis is like, okay, do you want some background info? And Marin's like, why?
No. Yeah.
No.
Why?
Yeah.
I'm just going to go do, it's like, I'm going to go do my job. I don't need to know anything
I
about
do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
But I also do wonder, again, just devil's advocate.
Oh.
I don't know that I really believe this, but he's convinced that there's only one where Damien thinks there's 3, but the demon does finally beat him this round. Maybe if he had paid attention to all of them, he would have had a fighting chance, no?
I think he's so
No, I think it's
physically
just one.
diminished.
Yeah.
And even later on, maybe we're jumping ahead, but when Karis finds Merrin dead with his eyes open, even the demon is looking at the whole situation. Do you remember? And there's a picture of Linda Blair Reagan in the bed, kind of looking on with curiosity. It's strange, almost like he didn't. Satan didn't cause him to die. It's
That's
his
kind of
complete
what
fatigue.
I thought. It was because he keeps taking the
his
pills.
pills are out of reach. He's having an
Yeah.
attack. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's what it is.
I thought it was natural
I think you're
causes.
right.
Yeah.
Just badly timed.
Bad
natural.
time.
Yeah, because I felt like
I
that
think
was
so.
the whole setup of the shaking in the pills
That's
was that
right.
he just drops dead.
Yeah.
He just
He's
expires.
weak, expires.
And even like the devil is like, well, this is boring.
I wanted a
and then
showdown.
begins to snicker.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. It's not an evil moo-ha-ha laugh. It's a ha-ha, got ya kind
Yes.
of thing. It's awful, and that really pisses off Karis.
Well, and I feel like when Karis is like, do you want background? And Marin's like, no, or why, or whatever. I think it's also like Karis being like, I don't really believe this is a possession. Do you want me to like catch you up or whatever? And Marin is like on board. He doesn't need
Right.
to know anything.
Yeah.
Like
I think
he's
that's
already
true.
convinced.
That's a really good point. Like he's expecting he needs to be talked into it, and he's just down.
Yeah.
Before Marin dies, I thought they were going to have the demon say, you killed your mother, and then Damien would lose it. But that's trite, and I'm so glad they don't. And instead, after the demon is talking like his mom, talking about his mom, he's just sitting on the edge of the bed, hunched over, like making himself so small. And it's so much better because it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, heartbreaking.
Versus the obvious, like he loses it and then he stops being able to do his job, which is shouting the power of Christ compels you 1,000 times, I guess. That's part of it. Yeah, it was so good.
I love when Marin, after they go through shouting, they shout, and then he just almost says it matter of fact, like it's the power of. He doesn't say the power. They do the power of Christ compels you, but then it's the power of. I can't remember the exact.
It's God himself who commands
It's God
you.
himself who. It's matter of fact.
Yeah.
And it's unimpeachable, and even Satan can't even deal with how clear Marin is at that moment.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you make such a good point,
Yeah.
too. I didn't think of it till you said it, that he so contrasts Karis, who is having a crisis of
Right,
faith.
right.
And he has none. Like you said, he's so clear on it.
He's so clear on it. This is what's compelling you. Nothing you say will affect us.
Yes.
You know.
I almost wonder if Karis had survived, if that would have renewed his faith. Is he on board now? Is he a change? I mean, he would definitely be a changed man, but is he a better priest?
Does he have an arc?
Yeah, I bet he does.
Well, interestingly enough, there were 2 sequels to this movie made.
Yeah, I haven't seen them.
Okay, The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, it's called, with Linda Blair and Richard Burton played a priest in it. And that was universally kind of despised.
Scorsese loved it more than the first.
okay.
How crazy
All right.
is that? But go on. Yeah, I read everybody hated it.
And then
except
there
for
was a
him.
third one, Exorcist 3,
Written and directed
by
by
William Peter Blatty, the author of The Exorcist. And George C. Scott is in it, and he plays Lieutenant Kinderman. And Jason,
Hot Priest
Hot Priest,
is back.
is back.
Oh, really?
He
Jason
comes
Miller.
back. Jason Miller comes back in an interesting way.
Wow.
And in fact, this movie is terrifying. And there are
Oh.
2 famous sequences in this,
Oh, I don't want to watch
which
it.
will scare the shit out of you. Out. There it goes. There's my shit. It's over there. Watch it. It's so scary and beautifully done, and kind of, but it didn't capture the overall feeling that the first film does. But it does. If you're interested in what happens afterwards, this is a good one to go
I
to.
want to watch it.
It's really good, and I won't tell you what the sequences are, but one in particular is well known among film cinephiles as one of the most scary sequences ever.
More
That's
so
it.
than
God.
The Exorcist.
Oh hell yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Oh, there's
I
a
mean,
moment.
it's always interesting to see the novelist's version.
Right. Yeah. This is successful mostly. There's a lot that doesn't go right, but there's enough of it does work that it's memorable. But anyway, let's continue.
All right. Well,
I
Sita
have a
was
plane
dead.
to catch. Yeah. Let's
Do
go.
you?
No, I don't.
Okay. I have been wondering because they set him up as a boxer, and when he gets the call in the middle of the night, I'm like, is he going to go punch her lights out? What's happening? And
Lights.
then you
don't like
wouldn't
when
like
lights
that.
You would like that if the lights get punched out.
Sita was dead, and here comes the boxing.
That's right.
He
Ding.
starts to punch her. Yeah.
Well, and before,
Yes.
we do get those very iconic.
Oh,
we
yeah.
see the head turn 360.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And then she levitates off the bed.
Terrifying. White of her eyes. You see the whites of her eyes. She tears through her wrist bindings. Right.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
Yes.
And it's so well done. It looks real.
And then at one point, the demon Pizazu, is that how you pronounce it? Materializes in the room.
yes.
Ugh.
Right? And that's really scary. And Satan is exalting in it, like posing.
Does it sort of mirror the standoff with?
In the beginning.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great too.
Yes. So well thought out.
So well thought out. Beautifully done.
Wow, that opening is really good.
It's great.
It occurred to me the demon is trashing this room. It's a good thing their mom's rich.
That's right.
Yeah,
Well, and I think they're renting.
Yeah.
'Cause she's
So
on
she's gonna have
location.
to pay for it.
Yeah.
Maybe the studio will pay for it.
Yeah, maybe the studio covers this type of thing.
Possession.
Yeah, that's right.
Incidentals and possession.
Yeah, after the Who, their
a per
concert
diem.
tour where they destroyed hotel rooms, they probably built it into all
Yeah,
this
that's
contract.
true. And then Reagan rips the medal off of Karis, which is the same Saint.
Saint
Oh, Saint
Joseph?
Joseph. Yeah,
Saint Joseph.
The
That's right.
same Saint
Patron
Joseph.
saint of aspirin.
Yeah, I remember the Aspen joke. It's sticking with me.
And I wonder if it's like the demon needed to rip off his
Yeah.
protection before.
Yeah.
Well, St. Joseph is the hospital in Burbank.
Yes, that's right, Jessica.
That's why they did it.
That's how I remember it.
Oh yeah.
I'll never look at that hospital again.
Yes,
Same.
yes, Jessica. You okay? Okay.
Jeez.
All right.
One thing where you and I, Jessica and I, are going to probably disagree. My favorite thing I think about this movie is there's no death that's wholly satisfying. Like when we finally get to see the demise of the demon, it's also at Karis's expense.
Oh, yeah.
He dies too. And it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I care about him.
Yeah, and that where you don't see his face, but you see his hand, his bloody hand in his fellow priest's hand. He says, "Do you want to confess? Right? Do you want to give your confession?" His hand is opening and closing. Oh, it's really effective.
It is. And you
Very
know that
sad.
it's not a sudden death.
No.
He's still in pain.
Yeah. But you know what? I like to think that there's some satisfaction in him that he did save the girl.
Yes.
And he sacrificed himself, Jesus-esque, I guess, and so he ultimately was forgiven. I
Right.
guess.
It's I think a way for him to redeem himself
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
his mom
Absolutely,
too.
yeah.
But I would have liked them both to live. I mean, I would have liked it if this were real, but as a movie, it's very effective.
If Father Karras and Chris hooked up,
Yeah, I ship them. I'm going to be honest.
And then he became Reagan's kind of stepdaddy father.
Yeah.
Father, stepfather?
Should we make this rom-com?
Stepfather, father.
Yeah. I would like that.
Okay. Make
They
it
would
happen.
be a great couple. It would be so cute.
She's an actress. He's a defrocked priest. And their daughter was possessed by Satan.
That's their meet cute.
Meet cute.
I love it. I'll go see this. Both of you, did you have nightmares? How did you sleep after watching?
After this recent viewing, I was not scared of it. I mean, because I was watching it with an eye towards this conversation that we're having, and I've had enough real life horror to mitigate anything that this could arouse in me. I'm not trying to be cute here, but you know, I was looking at it with more of a kind of a cinematic appreciation than letting it affect me emotionally, psychologically.
Jessica and I are having that experience too, where watching it for the podcast gives you a sort of distance.
Yeah, which is great. I take a lot. That's why I take so many notes.
Keeps you safe.
Yeah, it keeps me like I'm not as emotionally invested because I'm like doing homework. But I put me on edge. I went straight from watching this to the dentist, and so I was just like. By the time I got there, it was already jumpy. I did this on Friday, so my whole Friday was like gone to shit because I had this and then the dentist. But it's definitely like, and even talking now, like I've been sweating this whole conversation because it is upsetting and it's and it is genuinely scary. This movie.
Yeah.
I didn't have any nightmares about it. Thank God.
Thank
God.
I didn't feel scared when it was over, but I've thought about it a lot, which is what I want from a movie, is something that stays with you, that makes you think about it and dissect all of the elements. And so to me, it was very successful.
Well, and I also live in an apartment. And I feel like a lot of these movies where it's like scary things are happening in a house.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be in my apartment
right.
where I don't have an attic and I don't have a basement.
Yeah.
And there's so many people around to help me if something happens. I'm not like isolated in a house somewhere. And it's like my husband keeps wanting to rent a house and I'm like, why?
Yeah, no.
Why would you want to do that?
That'd be a hive for spirits.
Right?
Forget that crap.
So much more dangerous. Than living in
So
an
much more
apartment.
dangerous. You're absolutely right. Good
Very
for you.
logical.
Good for you.
Yes.
Logical fears.
Smart.
So I feel like if I had been at my mom's house where there's like squirrels in the attic, this movie might have given me more nightmares.
Yeah. While I'm kind of brushing it off and saying, yeah, I'm not scared, I don't think I would enjoy watching this by myself in bed on a big screen alone in a house.
Did you watch it with someone?
I watched it with my dog next to me.
That
Oh,
helps.
I watched it with my dog too.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, and as soon as I turned it on, instantly that digging scene,
Yeah.
my puppy Desi started barking her head off. And she went to the TV and she put her paws like on the stand and
cute.
she's barking at the screen.
It's a
and I
really
was like,
good video. We should
yeah, I do
post
have a
it.
video of it.
Satan's puppy.
But I was like, you're not making this better. Like immediately she was like, turn it off, turn it off.
Well, my dog lately has been barking at nothing and growling at nothing.
Oh,
That's
no.
so
That's
scary.
not good.
He just got a dog, and he's so cute.
Yeah, very cute.
I really want to meet him.
Christmas, yeah.
Her.
Cat the dog.
She's so cute. I feel like we should mention, because last week we had Sarah Benincasa on.
She's hilarious.
She's
She
great.
was great.
And we talked about The Shining.
Yeah.
And then she mentioned that you were in The Shining TV series, miniseries.
Yeah, they did a remake of The Shining in the 90s.
Which I watched when it was on TV.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah,
I did.
You know, and it was principally made to address the fact that the Kubrick film, however great that film is, was not faithful to Stephen King's book. And because his fans are legion, they wanted something that was a more accurate reflection of the book. And so that's what they did, you know. And for better or worse, it was relatively successful. Obviously, you know, there were some things that didn't meet, you know, the fans' expectations, and other aspects of it which surpassed their expectations. But yeah, I did that. And also, I'm most proud of, I did an audiobook narration of Stephen King's It.
Wow.
Which is, I have to say, won some awards and a lot of acclaim, and I'm super psyched about that. I love that. I did it years ago, and people are discovering it, especially with the new It movies that have come out.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I spoke to Bill Hader, who's I know him a little bit, and he's in the second part of It, which is about to premiere if it hasn't already. And he said that the director told all the actors in it, rather than read it, which is 1,200 pages and can take a long time, listen to my recording of it.
Ooh.
So I was happy to hear
You're a
that.
consultant.
Yeah.
They should be paying
I'm
you.
going to sue the shit out of all of them. Thank you.
That's amazing. I've never listened to an audiobook, and I think I'll start with this.
Well, it's
It.
the one that I'm
Yeah, it
most
sounds
proud. It's a
great.
long one. It's dozens of hours. It took me 2 weeks of 7-hour days and reading and doing all the voices and everything.
That's also probably a good buffer for being scared, where you're in a booth. So you're reading it, you're processing what's happening, but you're not terrified.
And you're getting
'cause-
paid to finally read the book.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. Getting paid to read is great.
That's
awesome.
amazing.
But what happens is, look, as performers, you know this. You kind of you become immersed after a while. So you're reading, you're just hearing yourself talk in a small booth. It's not like it's not scary.
You were scared doing it. Were you scared doing The Shining? When you're acting in horror-based stuff, are you scared?
Usually not, because it's such a technical exercise. I also did a film recently called The Perfection.
I
which
just
was
saw
on
that.
Netflix.
I
Yeah.
just saw it 2 nights ago.
And that was dark. That was dark because that wasn't really a horror film per se, because there was nothing supernatural about it. It was more about real physical abuse, and psychological abuse, and to get into it as you do to a certain extent, that was discomforting, and it didn't feel good to be that guy for very long. Whereas doing The Shining was fun. But I will say we did shoot that at this place called the Stanley Hotel,
Yeah.
which is reputed to be haunted.
That's where he wrote the book, right?
That's where he was inspired to write the book and wrote bits of it, I think. He and his wife Tabitha many years ago stayed there, and he thought, wow, would be a great idea for a book. That's where it sprang from. And so we were all at the hotel, most of us, and it was creepy, man. It was definitely
Yeah,
creepy.
did anything happen at the hotel?
I mean, yes and no. A couple of crew members were reputed to have left the hotel because of things that they saw and heard.
Wow.
It has
That
a lot
would have
of-
been me. I
Yeah.
would have been the one that's
No,
like, I gotta go.
I moved rooms because the first room I was in had a kind of a sitting room and then a hallway and then the bedroom. And from the sitting room, you could see the hallway and then the bedroom. I just felt sure that at some point I'm going to look up and see somebody sitting in my chair, so instead I got a big, wide, single room that I could see everything. And yeah, I slept with the lights on. And the reality is that I'd psyched myself into this. I'd had enough suggestion, and they were powerful suggestions, to make me scared. And so it was uncomfortable. I don't want to be scared of that shit anymore. And if there are ghosts, then let's go already. Come on, just do it. How bad can it be? Please be there. It'll be much easier if they're there. And then we could deal with this. But it's psychological. I'm not saying that there isn't some sort of manifestation or frequency that just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means it doesn't exist. But by now it's like, let's go already. Look, as soon as my kids said, "Are their clothes? Do their clothes die too?" I thought, you know what? You definitely that's it. You definitely dispelled the whole notion of ghost and
You're
everything.
like, where were you before I shot this? Before
That's
I
right,
was scared and
thanks.
switched rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that hotel's haunted?
Look, there may be the thing about ghosts, or the idea of what a ghost is. It might be a repository for a certain kind of energy, energy that is maybe activated or exacerbated by our focusing on it. If somebody says, "Look, you only see these things if you're open to them," there may be some truth to that, even in a kind of physiological way. You might activate something in a way, and you're the only one who sees it. Doesn't mean it's not necessarily there. It might not be there in a kind of a corporeal or tactile or physical form, but if you believe it and if you're seeing it and it affects you, well, that's the definition of existence on some level. That's why, again, I think so. I'm repeating a comedian who said, "Look, if ghosts, if all they can do are open and shut drawers and windows, then what the fuck? What's the big fucking deal?" Okay, thanks. Yeah, that drawer was always stuck for me. Thank you. I think it has to do with our internalized fears, fear of death, fear of what comes after this. And so
Yeah.
we're putting a face to it. We're giving a logic to our discomfort that we might not go on.
Yeah, like a coping mechanism.
It's a
Rather than
coping
we die
mechanism.
forever, we become ghosts and we still get to live.
Yay, great.
And haunt others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I buy that.
Why not?
Do you want to promote anything?
I want
To who knows who's listening?
to
ghosts?
7 ghosts. I'm actually starting a series where I play Fran Drescher's husband.
Amazing.
It's called Indebted, with starring Adam Pally and Abby
I love
Elliott.
Adam Pally so much.
And Jesse Hodges and Fran
Oh,
Drescher.
I
and
know her.
myself.
She's wonderful.
She's great. And that's starting for NBC. I'm on this show called Get Shorty, which you can see on Netflix and Epix. That has Ray Romano and Chris O'Dowd in it.
I've seen it. It's great.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm doing Ballers, where I play just another dickish guy.
Nice.
What else? And 13 Reasons Why, which the 3rd season is about to premiere, or perhaps it has already, and we're filming the 4th season of that.
Oh, I've
So
seen
I'm
the first
relatively
2
busy.
already.
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds like you're like
Yeah,
not really
pretty
doing
busy.
anything.
Yo, believe me, I
How embarrassing.
that I'm able to do this goddamn thing is a miracle, and you should thank me profusely.
This was delightful. We're so glad you came in.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank
Very
you.
And remember, everybody, your mother sucks cocks in hell. Good night.